G'day and welcome to SPCs Unleashed. This is episode 22 of season 2. And just as a prelude, we had a little bit of a chat last week about when do we decide it's season 3. And we're not far away from taking a little bit of a holiday break because of the time of year over in Europe. So we've got a couple of episodes left in season 2, and then we're going to take a few weeks break, and I think season 3 is going to be very AI-centric, just as a heads up. And maybe that's because of my level of obsession with it right now. But today we're not here to talk about AI. We're here to talk about another word that starts with A, and it is audit. And Stephan believes auditors should always be our best friends. And I'll hand over to him to tell us why.
Yeah, welcome to this episode, Audits in a Safe Context. There are chunks in it like compliance, security, risk management, quite a lot of things that are going through our heads. And we think that in a safe environment, auditors have an important job. They have to evaluate if our organization is really moving towards genuine transformations, rather than having superficial adoption of a bit of agile practices, doing weird stuff that doesn't create good output, which then creates outcome and impact. So I'm sure we will be talking about how do we shift from to, and I'm interested today with my colleagues, what is the from, what is the to, how do we get there? So from a perspective of auditors, they are well-trained people. They have certain auditing areas, objects, and approaches. And how do they now approach an organization that is in full swing with a transformation? And I'm now asking my colleagues if auditing is a black box and you do have a flashlight. And if you could point into that black box for 10 seconds or a bit more, what would you point at? What, from your experience, is the starting point when we talk about audits in a safe context?
Oh, I like the black box image because for me, when I started as developer, it was really a black box. It was something dark, something who is inside of that box and why is everybody mean? And it was always something like you have to prepare a week before. Just to fake everything is okay and great, and to pass the audit like an exam for university or whatever. You just work the whole weeks before just to achieve a great rate. So today, if I would go in a black box with a flashlight, I would try to put the light on the summit of what's inside the black box of the goal, and then realizing maybe we have the same goal.
That's an interesting flashlight. Mark, your black box, your flashlight.
So I think the image that's coming to my head is actually like a huge black box and just a little doorway at the bottom of it, right? This black box is like building sized and it's utterly pitch dark, and you've got this little door at the bottom of the box and you're peeking in with your flashlight. And it's so scary. It's big, it's dark. You can barely see anything except what your flashlight's showing you. And if you come from a developer background, that's the way you think of audit.
Interesting. I do have... Yes, Laurie?
It's all about like how much can you see? The more you can see, right? If you could turn the light on inside that black box instead of relying on your little torch, it doesn't go very far, you'd be thinking about it very, very differently.
Interesting pictures. When I'm talking about audits, and I'm asking the same question in most of my courses and when I'm teaching or coaching, and I say, okay, what happens if an auditor knocks on the door of that black box or that context? And almost 100% of the people tell me it's like looking at headless chickens. Everyone is running around, being busy, and okay, the auditor is coming, and we have to fix something. We have to fix processes. We have to fix documents. We have to fix a lot of stuff. And what springs to my mind is also headless chickens. Why is it that way? Probably we miss something called collective ownership, right? Not only delivering output, but also being sure if the black box gets opened, and the light shines into it, it shouldn't be headless chickens. So let's kick it off, and let's put us into the perspective. You are, as a change agent, as an SPC, you are on a transformation journey. And different implementations have different origins. And they probably will shape the conversation and also the expectation you will have with that topic of audits. So how about different safe implementation origins and different discussions? What are your expectations as a change agent? What are your experiences? And I would like to kick it off with Mark. I think you have some interesting thoughts in it.
So I just have flashbacks to stories. And I think I have a personal journey, which was 15 years as a developer. What did I think an auditor was? Right? Versus how did that change over time? And the flashback I had was to a training course. It was a leading safe going back, must have been about 2017. So really big federal government agency. And I think we had 2 or 3 arts up. We were front and center changing a multi-billion-dollar program and absolutely kicking goals. And they were using leading safe to go, let's get out across every executive in the agency to start getting them into this new way of thinking and the way our world's about to change. So they sent me to Canberra, and Canberra is it's our national capital, but it's really just a place for government and people who contract to government. So I'm in Canberra to do this training course, and I walk in, and I'm sure you guys have been there. You know when you're at a client site for training and they put you in a boardroom and you can't put people on breakout tables and activities are painful and it's like the worst possible training environment, right? Mm. Okay, so I've walked in and that's what I've got, the boardroom. And then the people start filling the room up. And it's not just a boardroom, but it's like a boardroom table that there aren't quite enough seats for the number of people in the room. So now we've got people, in some cases, in double rows sitting around this table. And I'm just really excited, right? Because you can still make a great experience, but you've just got to work so hard when you've got those constraints in the environment. And then we do the opening who's who in the room, right? You walk around and everybody introduces themselves in their role. And the audience was about 20 executives. None of them were from technology. They were all from various parts of the business. And probably half of them were from the audit side of the business, right? The bits of the agency that made sure that it was correctly interpreting and adhering to government policy. The bits of the agency that made sure this particular agency gave out social welfare aid. And there's a huge problem. If you give somebody too much social welfare and then you have to go and ask for some back later, it really doesn't look good. And particularly if somebody was in need, going and saying, hey, we paid you $5,000 too much, they probably don't have it to pay you back. So there was this whole branch of it who was focused on the risk of giving people the wrong support. And this is my room. It's like audit, PMO, chief risk officer, blah, 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 blah. And by the time they finished introducing themselves, I am just like, stab me now. You've put me in this horrible training room, boardroom table, not enough seats for everybody to even sit at the table. And you've just given me this room full of the people who hate agility. Let's say that's not who they turned out to be. They sat there and it became one of the most enjoyable leading safes ever taught because they looked and they went, this way of working, this is just a really active risk management based process. We love it. And they actually became massive allies. And so many people in government went, oh, we can't do that because this is government, or we can't do that because this is government. But I had these allies who went, what do you mean you can't do that? So I think the perspective, how do you look at them? Like, if you make friends, they're really, really good friends.
Interesting aspects. Nico, your experience when it comes, you've reached the tipping point, you're starting the transformation. What about audits and auditors?
You both summarized it very well. So one trigger word for me was hate in what Mark just said. At the beginning, you really think those people hate each other. Developers hate the auditors. You think auditors hate developers because we're doing something new, we're destroying the way they are working. And the important part is what you said, Stephan, in the beginning, we are change agents. This means this is also part of change, how you handle audit. They are not these mean people coming at the end of your waterfall or phase-gate project and explaining you what you did right or wrong. Mostly what you did wrong, because that's how they are feeded, because of your mistakes. They enjoy. So that's the picture we have usually in our heads. And I had similar experiences. I will maybe tell a story later. Similar experiences when we realize they also have a job and a goal, and it's close to our goal we're having together. So why not treat them? I first treated them as stakeholders, and now I treat them as equally colleagues. So if you as a coach outside, as an SPC, finds a way to co-work with them, to ask them, what do you need from us to make your job easier? You will realize how much they love Agile, how much what you can do with Agile, just by asking them, how can we help you doing your job? And they will start doing your job easier. So it's really like a symbiotic experience there, and it's part of the change. We are changing the way of working, and the way of working is not just coding and testing and writing requirements or whatever. It's also audits and many, many other things, finance, HR, etc. So don't stop with developing. It's a transformation of everything.
Yeah, that's an awesome curveball you're throwing, Nico. I wasn't the smartest SPC or change agent at the beginning of my journey. And I remember, I guess 2017, we were in a transformation, and we had proactive auditors. They heard there's something going on, and we were not proactive as change agents. We were just concentrated on implementing SAFe, training people, and they showed up and said, "Hey guys, by the way, you're pulling the carpet underneath our feet, and our concept of audit is crumbling because you are showing up with new roles, and we don't know who to address, how to address, and to do our job." And we said, okay, let's sit together. Let's go to a boardroom, Mark. Let's sit at the table, and let's understand what your needs are. And within 1 hour, we understood how to involve these guys because they were proactive. So my message, would I be smarter nowadays? I would start in a different way, right? I would start really with lean agile leadership, and auditing is part of this lean agile leadership, leading us into the future, making sure we are compliant, making sure we still have the ability to move from one stable condition into the other. And I would say being more proactive, understanding what the role is of auditors, auditing. Also, how would you probably include them in a LACE to make sure that we have not only the starting point in a good way, that we also then, when we start proceeding into the journey, that we have support from these guys, or even the picky and challenging questions. So with that, I would like to move to another question, or adding to this situation. Sometimes we come into a situation where we have different levels of maturity of the practitioners, but also us as change agents, right? How do we deal with that? Because how can we influence that not only the transformation journey, but also auditing is still effective? And if we move into different stages of the implementation roadmap, that we consider the different levels of maturity. Who would pick up the talking stick based on this kind of vast topic?
I reckon Nico has first dance.
No, come on. He's so lousy in reading body language.
I read your body language very carefully, mate.
Yeah, that's how you learn to dance, Nico. Okay. First dance, the floor is yours.
Oh, gosh. I personally think what is important when you have different levels of maturity of the people is having a coach who coaches people. I'm usually surprised that people don't think that they need themselves a coaching, but it's the corner where I come from. By the way, I have a mentorship which is running at the moment, because you can only involve if you have this kind of relations, if you have your own relationships, if you coach yourself or you coach others, or if you go on a mentoringship, which is on the same eye level. So there is within the same teams an imbalance, or imbalance is the wrong word, not the same level of awareness, the same level of awareness, and for that you need people. You need the LACE team so that the LACE team can coach these people to grow, and with that also experimenting on this in this environment. So what does it mean having? I just wanted to change the question. Let me think if I will change the question. Mark, in the beginning when we started, you thought this episode will go to a direction of having audit in the team and not safe being audited. And for me, that's quite the same thing, to be honest. So if you have people on a different level, why not include audit in the LACE, as you suggested, Stephan?
So to me, including audit, like the more that you build your LACE around the way your business works, the better things are going to be. And whether it's having somebody from audit in your LACE or having somebody from HR in your LACE, right? You think about all those classic business functions, you get them in your LACE and, you're applying a business lens on change. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, they fill the LACE with coaches or SPCs, right? And they fill the LACE with agile people and technology delivery people. And that gives you a very constrained playing field. Because if you want to change the way your organization works, you've got to think about your whole organization. And you might get coaches who are experts in audits or experts in HR, but you probably don't. You should get coaches who are experts in asking questions and creating insightful interactions, and then get the experts who actually know the answers. And what the coach's role is to pull possibility out of the people who know your options.
But maybe I can throw in a story. When I was really also in my beginnings of thinking about audit, because for me before I told you audit was just the painful guys coming and just criticizing everything because they are happy when you feel miserable. That was the picture I had in the beginning, and having them as stakeholders was the first step for me with them. Realizing, okay, they need some kind of this part of the application we are building, of the system we are building. We had also hardware in this case. Should have some tests being green, because otherwise it will not pass, it will not go through. And then realizing, okay, they check only if this thing works. Why not having a nightly build? Okay, I'm old. It was these days where you wasn't able to do everything continuously. We just had a nightly build server. And said, okay, why not having a nightly build server only for compliance and do all the things they want there? And one part of it was a server which we killed every night, just to find out when does our service goes to its knee and when it's out of service, and then showing the auditor when or how much buffer we have until we go to our knees, or that all the things maybe just once in a lifetime we didn't fulfill this requirement or this check, and then the next day in the morning was everything okay because we've seen the mistake. Give them a feeling of, okay, they are pros, they are doing the right thing, and not just as before they knew we are faking everything. So I don't know how compliance was before for you, but I remember the times. So we had a date, now it's compliance day, usually on a Monday, of course. And the whole weekend you're just trying to hide all the garbage you have there and put it under the carpet, and where can I store it, and maybe how can we make some breadcrumbs that he just turns left instead of right, because right is the whole mess.
And the auditor turns up knowing you've done that and going, what random questions can I ask you that are going to make sure that you show me reality rather than the stuff you've carefully prepared to show me? Yeah, I went through that. The ISO, I was working with a company that was ISO certified for quality, and we had a monthly quality audit, and we were running Scrum. This is back like 2007, I think, from memory. And he would turn up for his monthly audit, and like he had never even heard of Agile, and I kind of knew he was coming, so I'd gone off and I'd read a book, and there was a great book on integrating CMMI with Agile that actually had some really great guidance on this stuff. It was written by, I don't know what CMMI does these days, but back in the day, there were like appraisers who would come and they would audit a company to work out their level of maturity with CMMI. And they'd say, oh, you're CMMI level 2 or level 3 or level 5, what's the top level? And this guy who was an appraiser basically said, here's how you can get pretty close to level 5 CMMI with Agile. So I read that, and knowing that I was going to be quality audited for this ISO 9002 or whatever the standard was, I went, okay. So I wrote up our retrospective outcomes. I wrote up our sprint planning outcomes. Because the auditor turns up and he's like, show me this document, show me that document, show me that document. And I go, oh, I don't have that exact one, but this is what we're using. And he wound up going away going, actually, this is one of the most clean audits I've ever seen in my life. And was really excited about our retrospectives because he was used to a lessons learned database that nobody ever actually got any value from. So, it's always interesting, isn't it?
A few keywords popped up, and let me take the talking stick. We are teaching so-called DODs, definition of done. Why do we do that? We want to have built-in quality, right? That's one of the things. And auditors are looking for that built-in quality. And at Porsche, over the time, we automated a lot of these parts of the DODs on a team level, on an art level, even on a releasing level. And those auditors or compliance people, they were trained and over the time used. You go to the dashboards, you go to where the data is, and then you derive those picky and sometimes really awful questions to the teams, to the arts. And the auditors are now in a state where people know the process behind it, which is also, I think, a huge and an important part of a change agent. Make sure we know the processes. Make sure that entry-exit points into our process is clear from how it's done and when it's done. But most of the stuff that's what I've learned. How do you make auditors happy is in the built-in quality stuff, right? It's the DoD not being the headless chickens anymore, being pretty much relaxed if someone pushes the audit button. And let's make sure we understand it's internal and external audits. It becomes a non-event, right? That should be the picture. That should be the goal.
Well, it becomes continuous audit, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the weekly event or the monthly event or the yearly event, it's a continuous event. That's super powerful.
Let's sum up a bit what SAFE says. And I was asking a SAFE Copilot, what's the role of audits in a SAFE context? And if you look at the answer, it comes up with interesting points. And I ask my mates to jump in while we go through this list of 5 items. Shift left, integrate audits early in the process, right? Then, interesting, the second one, and that caught me, collective responsibility. It's not the auditor telling us how to improve. It's us being proactive. But the auditor is really a meaningful and helpful, supportive act to encourage us to be better, right?
So I think sorry, I'm going to go.
Go for it.
I see something slightly different with the collective responsibility.
Okay.
And this is probably the mindset thing, which, and again, I go back far enough to years gone by, and there was a really common thing that said it's one person's job to take the hit for the team with the auditor, right? The auditor is going to turn up and it's, is it the scrum master? Is it the project manager? There's somebody whose job it is to deal with the auditor and keep them happy. And you would kind of know, and I remember this back in my dev days, the auditor's around. So my manager would be in a bad mood for a week or two and asking us random questions during that week or two that we had to give very quick answers to. And he was doing us a favor because he shielded us from the audit. And so we knew nothing except that he was asking these questions. And I think so often with something like audit, when you know why, right? Why do we need this evidence? What is this achieving for us? Then it changes your thinking about it and your approach to it. And if you live in a world where one person shields the team, as opposed to the team going, actually, we know why these things are important. We know how they're fitting into our compliance and safety strategy. That collective responsibility of we're all going to make sure we're looking after our safety as opposed to it's one person's job to keep the auditor happy. That for me is that collective responsibility thing. It's like everybody in the team taking ownership of, preparing for, and here's my metaphor, the auditor is a person who keeps you safe.
Yeah. And for me, it sounds like the early days of including testing in the team. So if you remember the old days before we had the testers who just clone them whenever we need them, hundreds of people, an army of testers, at the end, we're not successful because we forget some things to test. It sounds similar. So if you had this experience, it's the same experience again. And why not making shortcuts and do it the first time right?
And you built a perfect springboard for the oncoming key points, Mark. One of them is risk management, right? We do risk management during PI planning. We do risk management during the iterations. It's a source for how to improve, right?
Yeah.
How to anticipate issues that could arise, and auditors are really interested in that as well. Not to pick and say, guys, you're bad, you're not doing a good job, but how to improve, right? And that's one other key point in what Safe Copilot says is continuous improvement. You mentioned it, Mark. You mentioned it, Nico. Okay, continuous improvement could be only a mindset, but if it's not helpful actions, if it's not activities improving us, it's probably really bad doing. It's still, we're doing Scrum, we're doing Kanban, we're doing Safe, but hey, we have no clue why we should do it, right? And the fifth point, which is on it, it's a core value, transparency, right? Anything to add to those 5 key points? Shift left, collective responsibility, risk management, transparency, and continuous improvement.
I think for me, I'm just going to keep coming back to, so Eric and I in our portfolio approach, we have this metaphor of people or bodies of people in an organization whose job it is to keep you safe. And I think that it's the mental attitude to go, why does this exist? It's not like it exists because it needs to be satisfied. It exists to keep us safe.
Yes.
And when you start with that framing about the way you think about audit, many different things happen in terms of it actually becoming something that enables you and accelerates you as opposed to something that constrains you.
Perfect.
So please, dear listeners, go back and listen again to the sentence. It's a cool one.
Yes, we will highlight that one. So before we start diving deeper into how could we have strategies or actions to deepen the collaboration with auditors and the people around it, let's go to the famous jiggles. And the jiggle this week is if audits in safe and in a safe context were colors, what is it? What color is it? And Nico, you have to start. You are forcing us and challenging us every week, every episode.
Yeah, as said several times, the question is always separated from my own answer. And this time I needed help because in my process, it was clear it has to be blue. Safe is blue. And then compliance is also blue. Oh, no, it can't be the same color because it's not the same. It's okay. What do colors mean? So asking AI, give me meanings of colors. And then after trying around, I realized, okay, now I have my colors, which wasn't the same as I had in my head or in my feelings. The answer was then, okay, safe is orange. Because of dynamic, engaging, the touch of creative tension, that's orange. And the complementary color to orange is the blue one. Blue for me is a very motivational color, by the way, but usually for our culture, blue is much more reliable, much more. For me, it's always tables. If I listen blue, it's always I have an Excel table with pro and cons. It's structured some kind of way. And audit is blue, but blue and orange are complementary colors. At least AI told me that. So together they create a great picture, and they make each other stronger, and they help each other to come in a balance. And that's why orange and blue, safe orange, audit blue.
Interesting. I hope you stay in a waiting position to bring in Rebecca's perspective afterwards. But first, let's hear Mark. What about colors?
So I decided that like colors like orange and blue were boring. So my prompt to ChatGPT said, "Don't pick boring colors. Give me metaphorical explanations of more unusual ones.
Yes.
I wound up, and I didn't pick a color for safe. I just picked a color for auditor. And I picked gunmetal. Now, gunmetal, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's the one, right? So the official metaphor is stoic strength, industrial resolve, and quiet menace. But as soon as I thought about it, I had this picture of this giant killer robot that was, of course, gunmetal in color. And it could either be facing out into the world and protecting you and keeping you safe, or it can be turned in threatening you and making sure you're doing the right thing. And it was all a question of perspective. Gunmetal.
Interesting. So, Nico, during prep time, Rebecca gave us some hints about what would her choice be about colors. Could you please present her thoughts and ideas?
I will try just to add the most lousiest color I ever heard. A colleague of mine really wanted to choose a car which has the color eggshell metallic. I thought, why the heck are you want to buy such a car? So, but yeah, that's a different story. After I heard your metallic, your tank metallic story. Okay, when I asked the question in our channel, Rebecca jumped in and said, "Oh, it's a cool one. I want to answer too." So yeah, feel free. And her answer was, of course, safe is teal, a harmonious mix of stability and beauty of a blue sky or blue ocean that changes yet brings connection to the world with elements of green for growth. And regulatory compliance is gold. It's deep, it's rich, it's a standard that holds over time, and it's bright enough to illuminate the areas of improvement need to keep that high standard. And I really loved this. You can imagine how many pictures it triggered when I read this. It was really cool. A cool one. Thank you, Rebecca, for this.
My choice was along an evolution and a transformation journey. So as we started the discussion today, probably audits and auditing is this harsh black and white or cold gray, right? It's bureaucrats coming in, checking lists and telling you you're 80% safe, you're a lousy bunch of people, you're only 30% pass, right? And what we would like to see, and ChatGPT helped me a lot, I want to go into this black box and open it up. And the color I would like to see is holographic silver. Why is it silver? Silver stands for quality, right? It stands for maturity. It helps you to see where you are and then not just check it and say, okay, we're good or bad, or we're kind of in between. How do we get better over the time? And why this holographic thing? It's not a one dimension or a two-dimensional thing. It's multi-dimensions in auditing. And what I've learned from good auditors, they are proactive. They come in with different perspective. Before they start the audit, they make sure you understand what they are looking for, right? So no surprising questions. And you said breadcrumbs, Nico. You might have laid out breadcrumbs. As soon as those good auditors come in, you might push them away because they won't fall into that trap. They know what they want. They know what they want to achieve. It's about quality. It's about performance. It's about evolution. So thank you, guys, for the jiggles. And thank you, Nico, for tickling our brains. Let's move into another aspect of you're a change agent, you're an SPC. You make sure that you have a good collaboration with auditors. And it could be different stages where you're in of your agile understanding, you yourself as a change agent, but also the auditors. What are your examples? Is your experience? What are your strategies collaborating with auditors? Who would like to take the stick?
I'm going to jump this time, even though Nico looks like he was ready to take it. So I think, and there's an expression, and I suspect my accent always kills it, but we talk about the law and the lore, right? So the law, L-A-W, and the lore,
Yep.
L-O-R-E. For a lot of organizations, there are a lot of things that people believe can't be done because of the law, L-A-W. But when you go and speak to the owners of the law, L-A-W, they go, yes, that's a common misunderstanding. And so organizations build this like mystique of going, this can't be challenged because of the auditors. And so many things where, you're perhaps trying to generate change and people are pushing back going, no, that can never change because of the audit. We've got to be able to satisfy the audit. And when you go and talk to the auditors, they go, of course that can change. I don't know why they would ever think that it can't. And you can, and I've had this a couple of times now where, we've been quite a ways in and things just haven't been able to move because everybody's like, oh, the auditors. And the one that always sticks in my head, I had a time where I was working with like 4 different government agencies. I was working with the tax office, I was working with the Department of Education, I was working with the Department of Employment and the Department of Human Services. And they're all at various stages of their safe careers. And they were all drowning in technical documentation, right? Absolutely drowning. And inevitably what happens when you still produce your old legacy documents is you have pretty low quality features and stories because the teams are spending all their time putting out these legacy documents. And we'd look and we go, like, those documents are just hurting so much of your ability to chase agility. Can we challenge it? And they go, no, we can't. We're the government, But I had this one agency, and it was the Department of Employment at the time, where the folks in their lace were smart and they said, let's get Audit in to work with us. So they were doing really good TDD and BDD, and they had all of their examples through automated, and they'd wired up their CI/CD rigs to their, I think they were using the Microsoft tooling instead of Jira, but their tooling system, so that all of the results of all the test automations were available on dashboards, and they were all traceable to the acceptance criteria, which were expressed as BDD. And they had all this stuff. They got the auditor in. They went, we want to kind of challenge because we're double dipping on all our documentation. The auditor took one look at all of their automated stuff and said, why are you still producing all those documents? I don't need them anymore. This is what I need to be able to prove with evidence. And they literally overnight, they slashed 75% of their legacy documentation because the auditor came in and said, if you can do this, you don't need to do that. I just need to see evidence of X, Y, and Z. And then I was able to go back to all my other government agencies and say, hey, by the way, over at the Department of Employment, this is what happened. And I think you can quite often, you have these really sticky things. You can't move, and they're holding the whole journey back. And so often they're based on people that they believe them, they're not really true. And if you get the auditor engaged early, instead of getting stuck on these immovable objects, the auditor can help you to slice through them. So get them in early. Use them as an accelerator.
I think this is really important, Mark, what you said. And I've been lucky so far as a change agent in my journey. Early in my days, I had the wonderful experience with auditors from the insurance company AXA. And these guys were highly trained, highly skilled, but also estimated people, because the preparation of an audit was an intense time. And when they showed up, people knew what's going to happen, right? So I learned a lot from these guys. So AXA guys, well done. And recently I had, and that's another story from the trenches, I had the opportunity to work with federal auditors on a government level. And they asked 3 questions. They said, okay, what do we need to understand regarding the principles and the mindset to challenge that on the transformation journey, if there's a traditional part of some initiatives and if there is a safe part, right? The second question they had, and my eyes were glowing, what are the important safe structural elements we should revisit over the time to see an evolution? They were not asking for, how do I assess Scrum or Kanban? How do I assess a Kanban system or a backlog system to see after 1 year if there is an evolution, or is it the same Kanban system, the same WIP limits, which gives us an indication they didn't talk to each other. They are just mechanically processing demand on that system, right? And the third question, and that's where they are really proficient, they came in and said, okay, and that ties back to what you said, Mark, there are some rules, there are some laws, there are some processes derived from the law. What about compliance and risk management? So, and these guys helped me to understand better what is compliance, how do you transpond compliance into something tangible, right? It could be OKRs. It could be non-functional stuff in our demand process, but also risk management. What are they looking for? And it was a huge eye-opener. I learned a lot. And together, and you mentioned that as well, and probably that's the curveball to Nico. Again, that's a huge collaboration, preparing audits, then leading audits, and what is the kind of debriefing after the audit, and what is the impact you will have, right? Your experience, Nico, when it comes to strategies and collaboration with auditors.
Yeah, sorry, Mark just triggered a new a new episode of my stories where he was talking. Sorry, I'm back now without the.
Perfect.
Did you say frog in your throat? No, in English, I don't think so.
Yes. That's exactly what we say.
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
if we're from our parents' generation, that is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Frosch im Hals.
Frosch im Hals.
Here we go.
Exactly. I think what is important is take some kind of naivety. So if you're external, it's easy. You can just ask. So, that's a funny thing. Why is this rule in place? And I remember one episode that told me we cannot do DevOps in our company because the developers are not allowed to go to production and see the productive data because it's not allowed. And I said, okay, show me please the regulation, or show me please the Swiss law. I just want to understand it and read it myself. After a week, they come back and say, oh, it's not a law. It's an Anweisung. It's a kind of way how we have to do it in our company. Say it again in English, sorry.
It's a directive for...
A directive.
Yeah.
I said, okay, can you show me the directive? Because I think we can change directives, at least what I believe. And then they come back and say, there is no directive. We just thought we have to do it. And we thought compliance people would love to have it this way.
Yep.
And 3 months later, they came with a cool implementation. It's like when you put the fire alarm. I don't know how it's in other countries. In many Swiss buildings, there's in front of the button you have to push. There's a small glass thing. You have to break it to put on the button. And by breaking it, you leave your fingerprint on it. So at the end, you can find out who was the idiot who just put a false alarm, if you just put it there. And they implement something similar. Whenever a developer goes to production, he has to destroy this glass. And by destroying it, you see, okay, this developer at this time accessed this data. Why? And so at the end, you can make sure that the developer didn't just made a dump of the whole database and sell the data to other governments or authorities. So asking about why is this rule? Is there a rule? As external, it's easy. You just can play dumb and say, I've never seen this, never heard this. Show me the law, show me the directive. I have no idea how it works. If you're internal, you can just say, yeah, but the people in AXA, it's also an insurance company. They are saying it's impossible for them. Why is it for us, for you name now a different company name? Why isn't it possible for that? So just ask a lot. And then you will realize it's just myths. People just think they have to. And it's not needed by nobody. So asking.
Perfect. So that throws me the next curveball. If we think about audits, and in German we have this saying, it's for sure that you say amen at the end of the service. And it's for sure that someone will push the button and come up with an internal or external audit. What are your experiences? What are your tips and hints and tricks to weave and embed audit readiness throughout the whole transformation journey? And it might open a huge barrel, but let's share our experience regarding this topic.
Look, for me, I think we've been sharing our advice on that pretty much the entire chat. But make audit your friends, get them on the journey early and make them part of the team.
Bingo.
Yes.
You could basically just pretty much stop there. Now, if you go a little bit further, you go, well, you ask them some questions, but I think you've got to ask yourself a whole bunch of questions because, auditing fundamentally is about evidence. And what are the things that you need evidence for and how you're going to make sure you have that evidence? And it's a little bit like, if I'm, coaching a product manager, what is the coaching discussion? Well, what needles is this feature meant to move? What actions is it meant to be producing in your customer in terms of change behavior? How are you going to measure that and how are you going to build in the ability to measure it? Right? so that when it goes live, you can see whether it had its intended effect. If you didn't ask yourself right in the beginning what effect it was meant to have and how you're going to measure it, you're never going to be able to answer the question at the end. And I think that for me is the same thing when it comes to weaving audit in. What is the evidence you're going to need? What questions are you going to need to be able to answer? And how do you make sure that the way in which you work prepares you to be able to answer those questions?
Great. You heard the hard way. Let's now hear the soft way. So make them first your stakeholder, make them your customers, treat them like customers, make them your teammates, make them your friends. That's a soft answer to the hard data answer.
You make it so easy for me, guys. And let's sum it up. You need a timing strategy, right? Based on all what we heard so far. What's the maturity level? Who's involved? Where do we start with audits? I've learned from good auditors, they are looking for the pain points to improve. They are looking for where's the biggest challenge, not just rushing through a checklist and showing up with a picture, you failed, you're passed, right? They really want to move away from this black and white to something that is helpful for the organization. The other aspect I would like to bring in and maybe open the discussion a little bit, what are the incentives for auditors? What have you seen in your past life as a change agent? I've seen auditors with a good incentive, not finding, for example, the most bad behavior and then you're the hero as an auditor. I've seen that as well, right? Those mechanical auditors where they show up and they can show you a table. It's mostly red and orange and not much green on it, and they're happy, right? Big grin and smirk on their face. I've seen other ones who show up with a picture that says, guys, we're not there yet, but these are our tips. This is our advice. And that's one thing I've learned from auditors as well. Your job is not done unless you bring in helpful advice. It's not only showing the picture. What are your experiences? Hard facts, matrix,
to me,
Mark, and soft factors?
You've already summed it up though, Stephan, is that they come in different shapes and sizes and flavors.
Yep.
I think the good auditors want to give you good advice that is going to help you to improve your safety habits. And then the next time they come back, they want to see how their advice helped and give you more good advice to improve your safety habits. And I think there are more of those type of auditor than of the other type that just wants to catch you out. That's me. Short and simple. Nico, what about you?
2 years ago, we were hired to be the auditor or the revisioner of an insurance company. And before we agreed on the assignment, I asked him, what is your goal? Just because I don't want to be the one who is just firing people who just is happy because people fail. And I got a really great answer. And that was the reason why we applied for be selected. They said, we just want to improve the company. We just want to understand where the risks are. We just want to know, do they behave by the rules? Do we have to change the rules? Maybe the whole directions are wrong. We have to change them. That's why we want to do this revision or this audit. And that's the way, the reason why we applied. And this also summarizes what I think we have to work on the mindset to realize we are all in the same boat. We have all the same goal. And this was just a check for me, a sanity check. Do I have now the bad guys again for my developer phase where they just want to say red, and get a bonus because they just find so many mistakes or errors? Or was it a revision department just want to help the company? And it was so clear they just want to help the company. And that's my advice to the SPCs in this session. Ask what is the goal. You are in the same boat, I'm sure. I'm really sure.
Yeah, and that triggers the conclusion time. How do you coach moving beyond compliance, which is maybe some documents, some checklists, to authentic transformation assessments? Because it's still an assessment. It's still someone coming in using the glasses, the lenses to show a picture, your experience.
Why don't you go, Nico? Because this feels like a continuation.
No, Mark. You always give it to me. No, now you have to start. So.
That felt like such a continuation of your story. But I think for me, and as we were talking just before we came on air, right? Because when Stephan nominated the topic, audits and safe, I thought about the conversation we've been having, right? Which is the role of auditors and how you envelop them in your lean and agile journey. And then if you know anything about the show, you know that we have whoever's moderating for the week phrases some trigger questions that we have a bit of a think about during the week to prepare. And when I saw Stephan's questions, it was like, oh, we're auditing whether someone's using safe well. Oh, I hadn't really thought about that. But I think there's probably a similarity between the way I'd answer that question, whether we're talking about whether they've implemented safe well or their transformation journey or just the attitude towards audit. Because if I think about if I was auditing safe and, you know, that moving beyond compliance mindset, I think if you're in a compliance mindset, you're asking, are people using PI planning? Are they using sprint reviews? Are they using definition of done? Do they follow the agenda for PI planning? Like all the mechanical stuff. And at that point, it's a compliance thing. And to be honest, a waste of time, but somebody's going to be happy you're ticking some boxes, right? But if you peel it back and go, why were you using safe and what would you hope was different if safe succeeded for you? And you audited to see whether your people were collaborating better, you had better shared ownership of outcomes, you are faster to market, you are more in touch with your customers, and you're producing more value as a company and people loved working at your organization, then you're getting to audit whether the why was successful rather than whether the what was successful. And I think that carries true to pretty much any type of audit. What's the why as opposed to what's the what?
Nico.
So yours, Nico.
I just put the cross on this, but yeah.
You're voluntold. You're voluntold because I think it's an important aspect. You brought in several times, and we can't stress it enough. I think. Go for it.
It's really the mindset, as Mark explained. I think we are all on the same. We now are on the same boat, and in your mandate, when it's about auditing, you are in the same boat. Try to find out which is our common goal, because you have a common goal. It's improving the organization. That's why, at least why I am doing safe or whatever I'm doing in my job, is improving the organization in a better way of working, in a better way of using your resources. And audit is nothing else than guarding for you, being your the gardener, the one who guards you, that you can fulfill this. So it's really a symbiotic relationship. It's like Rebecca said, gold and blue. It goes together, or orange and gold and teal, orange and blue. It goes together, and try to find this way of working together and not ticking boxes. Because if they tick boxes, it's just a wrong understanding of audit and compliance.
When it comes to moving beyond what probably most of the people think about audits, some discussions I had this year and last year is people asking us, how long do we have a lace? And how does a lace evolve over the time? And in one discussion, we came to a conclusion that probably a big part of the lace, the closer you come to establishing all the aspects of an implementation roadmap, and that's not a one-way through, it's recursive, as we also discussed that in other episodes, it's probably auditors play a huge role in keeping up the good work, improving the transformation. And one guy said, okay, probably we don't need the lace anymore, but we still will have a VMO, value management office. And auditors probably, or I would say for sure, should be part of a VMO, because it's about operational excellence, right? And operational excellence is not only a facilitation from the VMO as an entity on a portfolio level, it's much, much more. It's again the collaboration with the process authorities on the art level, even on a strategic level, team level, and auditors could help that quite a lot. Conclusion time. What is the one key takeaway? Who would like to start?
This time I would like to start. So
go for it, Nico.
Auditors are also human beings. So even if you think they're are monsters, bureaucratic monsters in the beginning, they are not. They are human beings with a job they want to do, and a job to be done or whatever. Help them so they will help you.
Mine would be audits are great triggers and facilitators for genuine transformations. Include them from the tipping point on.
So for me, it's auditors can be fantastic allies or terrifying enemies. What would you rather have?
You choose.
Yes, you choose. And let's conclude. Let's
All
close
right.
the black box.
Closing
and,
the black
Back
box.
to Mark.
So next week we are in the hardware land. And if you've been following, of course, there's a new Safe for Teams variation, which is Safe for Hardware, that was released recently. Stephan has taught it twice now, and I think probably one of the few people in the world who's even taught it once, let alone twice. And of course, we've got Ali, whose eyes just light up the instant you talk about hardware, and he's back from his world travels. So next week, we'll be looking at the new Safe for Hardware course, hearing some stories about how it worked in the trenches, and probably poking at it from the edges for those of us who haven't taught it, but we'll have to read about it as we prepare. So we look forward to seeing you next week for Safe for Hardware. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, and go find an auditor and give them a hug.
Do so.